before I was born and before any of my 4 brothers and sisters were born, and my father was 14 years old, a woman named Dimitri came to wait on my grandmother. And for the next 32 years, she worked for our family 6 days a week from 7 in the morning until 4 in the afternoon. And I didn't think this was anything out of the ordinary. Everybody in my neighborhood had a black woman working in their kitchen, and most of the time they considered her a part of their family. When I was 24, I moved to New York City, and that's when I realized that I had actually had a unique childhood compared to the rest of the world. And like so many other Southerners, Dimitri had a profound effect on my childhood. She went out of her way to make sure that I knew, in her eyes, that I was okay. When I started writing The Help, I wrote it because I really wanted to hear Dimitri's voice in my head again. And for the first time, I wanted to try to imagine what life must have been like for her. The next scene is in the voice of Skeeter, whose childhood mate, Constantine, also had a profound effect on Skeeter's life. The first time I was ever called ugly, I was 13. It was a rich friend of my brother Carlton's over to shoot guns in the field. Constantine found me crying in the kitchen.
Why are you crying, girl?
I told her what the boy had called me with tears streaming down my face.
Well, is you?
Yes, I would.
Now you look at here, Skeeter. Ugly live up on the inside. Ugly be a hurtful, mean person. Is you one of them people?
I don't know. I don't think so. Constantine sat down next to me at the kitchen table. I heard the cracking of her swollen joints. She pressed her thumb hard in the palm of my hand, something we both knew meant listen. Listen to me.
Every morning until you dead in the ground, you're going to have to make this decision. You're going to have to ask yourself, am I going to believe what them fools say about me today?
She kept her thumb pressed hard in my hand. I nodded that I understood, and I was just smart enough to realize she meant white people. And even though I still felt miserable and knew that I was most likely ugly, it was the first time she'd ever talked to me like I was something besides my mother's white child. All my life I've been told what to believe about politics and colors and being a girl. But with Constantine's thumb pressed in my hand, I realized I actually had a choice in what I could believe. By 16, I wasn't just not pretty, I was painfully tall. The kind of tall that puts a girl in the back row of class pictures with boys. The kind of tall where your mother spends her nights taking down hems, yanking at sweater sleeves, flattening your hair for dances you hadn't even been asked to. Finally pressing the top of your head as if she could shrink you back into years when she had to remind you to stand up straight. By the time I was 17, Mother would rather I suffered from apoplectic diarrhea than stand up straight. She was 5'4" and first runner-up to Miss South Carolina. She decided there was only one thing to do in a case like mine. Miss Charlotte Phelan's Guide to Husband Hunting, rule number 1. A pretty petite girl should accentuate with makeup and good posture. A tall, plain one with a trust fund. I was 5'11", but I had 25,000 cotton dollars in my name, and if the beauty in that wasn't apparent, then by God, he wasn't smart enough to be in the family anyway.
Well, Kathryn thinks that Minnie is based on me. The truth is, Minnie is my mother. My mom was a maid in Montgomery, Alabama, and she was about 4'9", a pint of dynamite, and she could put the fear of God in anybody, and it was usually the white women that she worked with. So I think it's safe to say that I know Minnie. I know Minnie really, really well.
Minnie was absolutely the character I had the most fun writing. She is short, she is sassy, and she is constantly mouthing off to whatever white woman she's working for. If Minnie is thinking it, Minnie is saying it. So, as you might guess, Minnie spends a good portion of her life getting fired.
Minnie, Greenwood, Mississippi, 1940. Sit down lay behind, Minnie, because I'm about to tell you the rules for working in a white lady's house. I was 14 years old to the day. I sat at the little wooden table in my mama's kitchen, eyeing that caramel cake on the cooling rack waiting to be iced. Birthdays were the only day of the year where I was allowed to eat as much as I wanted. I was about to quit school and start my first real job. I already knew about housework. After school, I did most of the cooking and cleaning. But if I was going off to work in somebody else's house, who'd be looking at the house? Mama turned me by the shoulders so I'd look at her instead of that cake. Mama was a crack whip. She was proper. She took nothing from nobody. She shook her finger so close to my face, it made me cross-eyed. Rule number 1 for working for a white lady. It is nobody's business. You keep your nose out of your white lady's problems. You don't go crying and hold yours. You can't pay the light bill. Your feet are too sore. You remember one thing. White people are not your friends. They don't want to hear about it. And when Miss White Lady catches her man with the lady next to her, you keep out of it, you hear? Rule number 2. Don't you ever let that white lady find you sitting on her toilet. I don't care if you got to go so bad it's coming up out of your hair braids. If there's not one out back for the help, you find yourself a time when she's not there in a bathroom she doesn't use. Rule number 3. Mama jerked my chin back around to face her because that cake had lured me in again. Rule number 3. When you're cooking white people's food, you taste it with a different spoon. You put that spoon to your mouth, think about it, look and put it back in the pot. Might as well throw it out. Rule number 4. You use the same cup, same fork, same plate every day. Keep it in a separate cupboard and tell that white woman that's the one you use from here on out. Rule number 5. You eat in the kitchen. Rule number 6. You don't hit on the children. White people like to do their own spanking. Rule number 7. Now this is the last one, Minnie. Are you listening to me? No sass mouthing. Mama, I know how to, oh, I hear you when you think I can. Muttering about having to clean the stovepipe, about the last little piece of chicken left for poor Minnie. You sass a white woman in the morning, you'll be sassing out on the street in the afternoon. First day at my white lady's house, I ate my ham sandwich in the kitchen, put my plate up in the spot in the cupboard. And when that little brat stole my pocketbook and hid it in the oven, I didn't look on behind. But when that white lady said, now, I want you to be sure and hand wash all the clothes first, then put them in the electric machine to finish up. I said, why I got to hand wash when the power washer don't do the job? That's the biggest waste of time I ever heard of. That white lady smiled at me, and 5 minutes later I was out on the street.